Hey, good afternoon, guys. So today we're going to be showing you how to install a power steering pump in a 2007 Chevy Aveo. This is the standard Aveo, not anything special, just a standard Aveo car. And the reason I'm putting this video on here is because when I searched YouTube to try to help me find something to be able to understand how to put this thing on easier and faster, I was not able to find anything. So I'm posting this video hoping that it'll help someone else. I don't have anyone to hold the camera for me, so what I'm going to be doing is just basically going through how to take the different components off and what to take off, so it will save you guys some time. I do know that the power steering pump is the problem because this is actually my son-in-law's car. It broke down on him on the way to work the other day, and this is basically what is going on. If you can look in there and see, the bearing has failed on the power steering pump, causing the belt to come off, and of course everything else that belt runs, the serpentine belt. The car would still run until the alternator or till the battery died, because the alternator would not be charging, and most likely would probably run hot too because of the water pump not being able to turn. I'm not 100% certain about that, whether the water pump is tied to this or not. It may be driven by the timing belt or timing chain, but basically you wouldn't have air conditioning or power steering. So I do know that the pump is the problem. I've already picked up a water pump from AutoZone that fits this car. I also have a belt here to put on there, a new belt, just in case the old one is cracked up. I also have a quart of power steering fluid. May end up needing more than that. And I'm also going to need a pulley removing tool that you use on the power steering pump, because the pump you take off is going to have a pulley that's pressed on, and you're not going to be able to get that pulley off by hand without the use of one of these pulley remover and installer kits here. And I was able to rent this from AutoZone basically for a deposit. You go in there and it's about 40 bucks. You give them a deposit and they give you the tool. When you bring the tool back, if it's not harmed or damaged in any way, you get your deposit back, essentially. So you're paying nothing to rent the tool, but you're going to have this in order to take the pulley off of your old pump and repress it back onto your new pump. Guys, as far as tools here, I've got a assortment of metric 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch drive sockets. Metric combination wrenches. I'm using the ratcheting combination wrenches. You can use standard open and closed in combination wrenches, be fine. I'm using those to be faster. And I've also got some 1/4 and 3/8 drive ratchets. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the negative battery cable on the battery, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take this air cleaner box off, and I'm probably going to need some 10mm sockets to get those bolts loose, and a screwdriver to take this portion here loose. I'm going to go ahead and take this clamp loose. I'm going to take that clamp loose. I'm going to unplug this sensor here, and I'm going to take this clamp here loose with a pair of pliers and move it out of the way. One thing I forgot to mention is I do have a flat blade and Phillips screwdriver, some slip joint pliers, needle nose pliers, and channel lock pliers as well, just in case, because I'm sure I'm going to need those. Okay guys, so here's where we are right now. I was able to take a, not the right size, but I took a 13mm open-end wrench, and I disconnected the negative side of the battery cable. Came over here and took a 10mm socket, and ended up putting a 12-inch extension on my ratchet there. I took the one bolt right there out of the front of the air cleaner box, and there was 2 bolts in the back. I took those out. I also took a pair of slip joint pliers and slid this hose off of this connection point right here. You had to compress that clamp, and I slid it back far enough to clear this bar pitting, and take a pair of pliers and you gently wiggle this back and forth until you get it to slide off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hose and I'm going to slide it off. I'm going to slide this hose off, and I'm going to lift this box out of this hole here. Sorry, I forgot to mention, as far as this little sensor right here, what you're going to do is you're going to take a screwdriver, pop up under it, and you're going to take this clip here, out. Once you take that clip out, all you've got to do is take and just pull that off and get it out of the way. And actually, I'm not even going to take this right here loose. I'm just going to pull it loose from right here and lift this box out the way. Set it aside. Got a pin over here that I'm putting the screws in. And so now you can see that you've got a lot more room to work in here to actually get this pump off. But what I'm thinking here is that I'm going to have to take these 3 bolts right here loose. This goes to the engine mount. But actually, I think what I'm going to have to do is take these 3 loose and take these 3 here as well loose, because what this motor has got to do is it's got to lift up. As you can see here, this pulley and this pump has got to go back in together. You don't have a whole lot of clearance right here on your firewall to be able to get that out unless you lift up on this side of the motor. In order to do that, you've got to take these bolts out of this mount and take this mount loose and take it off. Now, to do that, I'm going to need some bigger sockets, but I'm also going to have to go underneath the car, and I'm going to have to put a jack underneath the motor in order to support it, to make sure that when I take this loose, the motor doesn't drop down on this side and damage any of the components. What I'm also going to have to do is check and make sure that before I do that and before I jack this car up, I've got to make sure I've got enough clearance over here that I'm not going to damage anything, because I'm going to have to probably get I'm guessing maybe 3 or 4 inches of clearance on this side to be able to get that pump out. And I'm hoping that I don't have to take this air conditioner line loose, as far as break it and lose the refrigerant out. I hope I don't have to do that. I think I can take this bracket loose, but I will check on those things and see how it goes. Okay guys, so the next thing I did, and I did it in this order, I took a 10mm socket on a 12-inch extension bar, and I took this nut loose that was holding the brackets for the air conditioner lines. I took this loose so I could slide that out of the way. Trying my best not to take these lines loose and release the refrigerant if I hadn't got to, but I believe I'll be able to get these over far enough past the firewall that I won't have to worry about those. The next thing I did was I come over here to the pump, and I took a 10mm socket along with about a 6-inch, quarter-inch long extension right here, and I took the 2 bolts that were holding this pipe to the back of the pump. This is actually the return line to the power steering pump. This is the suction line, not the pressure line. This right here is the pressure line. Now, to get that off, what I'm going to need is a flare nut wrench, and this is it right here. This is actually a standard flare nut wrench. You can get these at your parts store. You can use a standard 5/8 wrench. I believe it's a 5/8. It might be 3/4. Yeah, get it going there. Yep, it is a 5/8 flare nut wrench. Now, you can use a 5/8 combination wrench, but you're going to run the risk of rounding the head on this nut here, and that's why I call it a flare nut wrench, because basically what this thing does is it allows you to slide the wrench over the tube like that and be able to loosen that. So that's the next thing I'm going to take off. Like I said, I took the nut loose over here for the bracket, then I took this right here loose on the return line for the power steering pump. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this loose for the pressure line with that flare nut wrench. Once I do that, I've looked at the engine on the top and bottom. I don't see anything that's really going to cause it to have any restriction. I do have an air conditioner line right here that I'm going to be watching, and I also have a top radiator hose here I'm going to be watching. So right now I'm going to take this loose, and then I'm going to get a standard floor jack. I'm going to set it up under the engine. Probably going to be right here under the oil pan, and what I'm going to do is try to get it on the far side as I can. I'll show you guys where I put it. I'm going to get a board and put up there where it's going to give it some extra support, and start getting a little bit of just resting pressure of the engine on it. Then I'm going to come up here and take these bolts loose to where I can raise that engine up and hopefully be able to get enough clearance to get this pump out. Okay guys, I've managed to get the flare nut wrench and take the pressure line off of the pump. And what I've done, I don't know if you can see it here or not, but I've taken a floor jack that I have, and I have slid it under the passenger side of the motor on the oil pan as far as I could get it over. And what I did was, I've got it down here, and I took some blocks and I have it up there. Not sure if the camera will get over there, but basically this is the furthermost point of the oil pan on the passenger side of the engine, and I've got very light pressure. I basically just snowed it up against there as of right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to start loosening the 5 bolts that hold this engine up on this side. And once I get those loose, then we're going to see how much I have to lift the jack up and lift the motor up on this side to be able to get to clearance on this pulley to be able to get this pump out.